know what? I should probably start over. I think I need to start with where I came from and like what led to TAVERN, because I think that makes the most sense.
Good.
So I'll give you a little bio, resume, CV, and I'll be pretty quick with it. But it makes sense. So I went to school at Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia, from Philly. Graduated, worked in-house actually at NBC Sports, which was awesome. Did a bunch of cool stuff. Basically did a lot of things because I was so junior and it was entertainment. You had a lot of outputs, a lot of look and feel, and a lot of just digital and movement elements to it just naturally, along with all the advertising work that we were ultimately rolling out. But so it was really cool. I got to edit and work my way into like Avid Bays. I don't know if you remember the days of Avid. Learning that and like sitting with editors and basically just making supers and titles and forcing them to use. I was like, yo, can I help? Can I make things for what you're doing? And they're like, yeah, you're saving us time. Like, let's go for it, kid.
It's all about raising your hand, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Which might lead later into this conversation.
Yeah.
It might be a good part of it, but it is because I got to do really cool stuff. Did like MLS, Formula One, Tour de France 150th, like commercials, like national broadcast commercials, and more of like cut together, really much editor, not Widening Kennedy's Super Bowl style commercials, but it was awesome. It was really fun. And it was very design driven and like aesthetically driven, and learned a lot, which was really cool. So kind of in this entertainment world, didn't think that's where I was going to end up, but sports was awesome. So like, cool, I'm in this is fun. I like it. Hard pivot to this place called Quaker City Mercantile, which is also in Philly. And they created Hendrick's Gin, Sailor Jerry Rum. They brought back Narragansett. They did tons of Guinness work and all beverage, and kind of hard pivoted into beverage. So I was hired to lead the Hendrick's team. So I was there for a while. Left, went to Stranger and Stranger for a short bit of time. And then, quickly realized I missed not just doing like the nitty gritty in the weeds, just pack work. I really missed the 360 of it all, because if you think Hendrick's Gin, there's this wide, ever evolving world. So there's an opening at JKR to lead the Budweiser team, global and US, and I was like, this is dead on. And some great designers and people, at that studio at the time. So went there, did a lot of work on Bud, ABI, Diageo, so a lot of spirits design. Kind of spirits is always that through line there. And then went to Designbridge, where we worked on PBR and also Smirnoff and Diageo, tons of kind of like these booze projects still. Then left there, kind of, I guess, like mid-pandemic-y. I'm fuzzy on the timeline still. And went to TikTok, to their internal ad agency, which was completely different. So you got like tech, very much sports, and then hard pivot into booze, and then like tech of all things tech. But it was really working on their CPG verticals and like teaching the CMOs how to use, that you should be using native content on TikTok that performs better, and kind of creating ideas and working with even their agencies to develop work. So it was really like this creative consultant at TikTok. In the meantime, I was starting TAVERN, which is what we're here today to talk about. So TAVERN is an agency that focuses on food, bev, and hospitality. And everything we do is is ultimately this like long-term search for timelessness. I think that's what makes the best design. I hate the fact that we redesign things every 2 to 5 years. As much as that keeps us all in business, it's a shame, because there is this like, I don't know, it's just fleeting and fleeting in a poor way, because it's not like doing anything for us. So we really, not to get too deep into that, but we really love like this idea of like timeless design. And it's an impossible thing to ultimately grasp, which makes it even more better. But with that, our approach to doing that and our philosophy is modern heritage. So everything we do is rooted in modern heritage to ultimately try and get to that impossible line of timeless design.
Does that limit some of the potential clients for you?
No, I don't think so at all. And I think, that's what a lot of people ask, because we do a ton of, we're food, bev, and alc at its core. That's ultimately our niche, right? So we do a lot of innovation. If at least probably half of our work is innovation work of some sort. And so that makes it hard when you can't dig into the archives and dust something off and sharpen it up. But I think, examples of that is Fisher's Island Lemonade. This is a brand that we recently worked on, both from a everything but pack, so a Viz perspective into campaign work. And so, this is a brand that's 10 years old, but it's rooted in heritage. It comes from this weird little island off the tip of Long Island.
Yeah.
It has heritage in and of itself just from its provenance. So we dug really deep into that. What makes that place, what makes New England ultimately. It very much like taking this like prep collegiate Ivy style of things and then distilling that down into a modern context. So what's the modern context of that? It is ultimately what J. Crew is now doing, right? So like you can start to pull, it's like any design project, right? You can start to pull from, you should be pulling from the past. You shouldn't be pulling from Pinterest, which is another cross to bear of mine.
Bro, I've been saying that so much lately. It's like Pinterest is not heritage anymore. It doesn't throw back. All you get are what everybody else is doing now to reflect a heritage or vintage look.
Totally. It drives me crazy. And
everyone,
we all fall trapped.
Yeah.
We all fell trapped to it. Don't get me wrong. I've banned it, but we all still kind of revert when we're looking for, you need to look for something quick in a meeting and you're still doing it.
I can see why you need to. Yeah. And that's great. And I love the idea of having modern heritage in there. I think because when you hear heritage, you think an aesthetic. No, it's more core competencies of the brand and it's everything about it, right? Storytelling. Yeah. And it's not that it's going to look heritage. It's more you're pulling from heritage.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, it's basically you're pulling from something that exists. I think that's the problem is I have a nice dissection that we do on everything. Pack is the easiest one to do it. But actually, if you go to our site on the old Grandad 16 that we recently did, it has a nice little dissection. But like every single mark that is made, either on packaging or even when you're redoing a brand, literally comes or is inspired from somewhere in history. Because if not, then we're just making stuff up. And then we are just pulling from the contemporary sense. Now, I think you need to balance that with what's happening, right? You can't do an old dusty type, tall serif dusty typeface. You need the modern cut of it. Exactly. I think a great example is Sizzler, which they use Windsor. They use Windsor all throughout the 60s and 70s, which we brought back. And now we're actually transitioning it to Simon Letters. Blank on his last name.
Yeah.
Okay. He just came out with everyone should check it out. It's awesome. I think it's called Friends. And it's a more contemporary cut
Yes, I saw
Windsor. So, that's I think is a brilliant example of modern heritage that we didn't even design, right? That Simon fully did. It's separate from, and we're using it to its advantage. Yeah. It's brilliant. It's taking the old and making it new, and it feels very much of our time period, but also timeless at the same time because it's rooted in something that existed.
I think you and I talked about earlier the whole Maya principle thing and how that works perfectly with this, right? A bit of the past and a bit of the future, like what's appropriate, but what's nostalgic. And
totally.
That has changed everything for me since diving deep into it about a year or two ago. And I love bringing that up to clients onboarding time, because to me, I feel like anything we could do to give a little bit more of an idea of our expertise or what we can do for them, that starts the storytelling before you've even done any work.
100%.
Isn't that great?
You've already sold them in.
Yeah. I'll put links to all these things we're talking about because I love these ideas of like including that font and other stuff, because I really feel how you found us was through what I had kind of done with Fred. And then I think you even commented when we talked about nostalgia as an episode. And I was like, how are we not talking, bro? Like,
totally.
We got to get into this a little bit more. And what I love too about was we were chatting the other day, and through all your success and everything that you're doing right now, you also have another underlying kind of message, which was this idea of like practicing your design. And why aren't we training like athletes basically the same way? When you said athletes practice more than they play, I was like, okay, light bulb went off. I can't believe we've never really even like dived into this whole topic of what are we doing to practice and play in our industry, right? Yeah. Where did that even start with you when this came into play? When did you first realize we're not doing enough?
I don't know, but it's been nagging at me for some time where it's like, you know, even in my agency days, you'd think you'd just show up and like you get a new brief, and every brief we always get is like they need it tomorrow. So you're like, I just need to perform at 100%. Like I need to perform like it's week 16 and Sunday, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not like. I need to prepare for that. I need to do 2 days all summer long. I need to be training all week, every week to lead up to that point. And like we do that naturally, I suppose, because we're professionals and we need to be working. But this idea that you need to be at 100%, giving your all like it's the Super Bowl, is impossible if you're not practicing. It just isn't. You're just not. You're gonna have bad days. You're gonna have good days. And that you're gonna have those even when you practice. But this idea of like, I think the light bulb went off when I play a lot of golf. Not so much lately, but I aspire to play a lot of golf. And when I do, like when you really break it down, and this applies to probably any adult sport. Do you play any adult sports?
Yeah, I'm getting much more into mountain biking, you name it. Perfect. Now, and everyone's trying to get me into pickleball, so forget that.
And pickleball. I mean, pickleball, tennis, the whole,
racquetball, anything,
all of these sports.
Yeah, anything, you particularly one-on-one.
Practice. Yeah. You need to practice. Yeah. Doing it before. So like golf and racket sports are easy ones, right? Like you literally practice more, at least I do, and everyone I know that kind of plays these sports practice more than they are actually playing the game itself. Why are we not applying that to our profession and what we do? And some people are, but it's just like we're not as much as we should be. It's very, very crucial, and that can break down, which we're going to talk about in like so many different ways.
Good points. Don't you feel too we get a bonus with this, because I feel like there's a fun aspect involved with the drills and the practicing we could do as designers.
Absolutely.
It's not athletic or endurance or, to the point of exhaustion or anything like that. And it's not perfection. It is more about like a play practice, right? It's
100%.
like or just the warm up. When you and I were chatting about this, I was like, we came up with so many of these things that we're going to chat about. And it made me think about, it's not just the design thing, right? It's 3 different pillars that we want to chat about. The first one is kind of like, obviously, your design skills and practicing actually being creative with your hands, with your computer, with whatever it is, right? Second one is like the communication and management of your business, of your team, of your job, whatever it might be. We have listeners in all those pockets. And then third, I love that you were talking about like, you were like, how do we keep this in line? And we wanted to be like, let's talk about the non-negotiables. How do you make practicing part of your time, part of your whole thing there? So this idea is warming up, design drills, you name it, anything there, staying sharp and practicing like an athlete. When that went off in a light bulb, I was like, that's great. First question for you. How do you encourage that in your team and yourself? First of all, just to practice it. Where did you introduce it? What were those first few times?
Yeah, it's really easy first thing in the morning, which, again, relating it to sports or even relating it to working out. Right. I mean, the way I look at it, going back on it, like, no, this is more fun and it should be more fun. It's a hell of a lot better than going to the gym.
Yeah.
And you get this equal parts out of it, right?
I'm like, I'm trying to think, can I do this together? Can I do something while I'm at the gym? Tell me
about it. You can, podcast on a run maybe, but
that's true.
But yeah, no. So like first thing, get into the studio. We've all worked at studios, we're all, even myself, even our studio, the first, 9 to 9:30, it's a bit of fuck off time. It's a bit of like, we're getting a coffee, we're bullshitting with everyone else. I think that's super valuable. I think it's really great. Are you picking up sirens?
Yeah, we're fine.
Anything?
Don't worry about it.
Sorry. This
is real world, dude.
I'm in the worst corner of Brooklyn, and it is going to be loud. So I apologize. Worst intersection in Brooklyn.
A complete opposite to Fred's, which was in Hawaii with the sea breeze behind him. I was like, dude, I want nature sounds every time on this podcast. So you're bringing it, dude. You're bringing it.
Cool. So 9 to 9:30. It's either answering emails that you just need to get out. It's fucking around with people. It's talking about the weekend. So we come in and we just have a little warm up session, and it could be anything, but it's kind of blocking that first like 30 minutes. Even if it's 15, you know, you got a busy day, shit's gonna hit the fan pretty soon, but like even take the 15 minutes while you're sipping on coffee to just go over some stuff, to look at things. And there's a bunch of different ways that we do it, but like, and I guess we'll go through drills in a
Yeah.
separate one, but yeah, it's blocking out that little bit of time. And again, like 15 to 30 minutes maximum.
It's not a lot.
Anyone can do 15 minutes in their day.
And you bring up a great point. We almost already do this already, right? No one I know goes right from bed to the screen, right?
Yeah.
You're an animal if you do. And you're missing out on that moment of, you're right. It's kind of like that fuzzy zone in between.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's a great time to do it. And then you get it out of the way, right? You've warmed up a bit before you actually do anything that could possibly make or break you.
100%. Yeah, and actually on that came up too when we were talking, because it's like, whether you're working on a project and you got like 2 weeks on the same thing, like you are expected to show up, come to work, it's 9:30, whatever it is,
yeah,
and then just start going. And it's like, there's going to be that's like running. My first half mile is slow. It has to be. It's not going to be fast, right? Like you need to like ramp into it. And even like think about a sport, hockey, football, even golf. Like the first few throws or hits, they might you might chunk a few, you might like throw a few a little too far right, too far left. It's the same. It is the same thing with design. You are going to make weird moves because you're just not in it, and it gets you into this place with low pressure, and it's separate. I like the idea of like doing it to where you're warming up to do this rebrand of a restaurant, and your warm up is nothing like that restaurant, and nothing like capital B branding type work. Yeah. Maybe it's like making one of the ones we always like to do when we can't think of something to do is make ourselves a business card, and there's no rules on it. Perfect. You pull some old weird thing and be like, how did people in the 20s make a business card?
Yeah.
And just
that's a good one. Go. I love that. So tell me a little bit about some of these examples. What kind of design drills have worked for you guys in the past? I'm writing that one down on the how does a business card look in the 20s.
Yeah.
That's great.
Our one designer, Vin Conti, who everyone should check out. He's great. Aside from the beautiful work that he does for TAVERN. But he was doing like one a day, just like getting the stuff out, because we have a bunch of assets as TAVERN. If you go to our site, like with the horse, the TAVERN logo, we have an ever-changing logo, so we always like to like reinvent, because there's a million different taverns, they all manifest differently, so the logo type always changes. So kind of gives you a nice like design fodder of like, keep a horse in there and do a different logo type, and then no other rules. Okay. Really easy. You can start to like crank out, and that gets into thumbnailing, that gets into doing different styles just for the sake of getting it onto the page. And it's rough, and no one needs to see it. You don't make the business cards. Sometimes we do. Sometimes it's fun to hand people a bunch of different ones. Like it could turn into real things, but the goal is not. The goal is to get basically to get the shit out, right? Like get all the shit out on the page so that you're kind of free. Maybe it's good there. Maybe just throw it away, and that's great. And you start fresh and you're ready to go again. Warm up. How this really came about was years ago, where my background now. It's tons of spirits. To be a spirits designer is a very unique thing. I think anyone can do it, but I think it takes a really long time. And I think anyone can do it if you really, 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 really give a fuck about it. Yeah. And some people do, some people don't. But, as designers, like I found over time, working at agencies, sometimes people like have done that. That's all they give a shit about. And that's great. And sometimes you acquire these people who are like super into it, really wonderful, maybe viz designers or type designers or what have you, that like need to break into it. And it's like, how do you teach this? And we talked about this a little bit, but technically speaking, and I might get some shit on this, but what I believe is, technically speaking, beautiful spirits pack design is technically wrong. Technically completely wrong. Minus a bit of hierarchy, which like needs to just naturally happen, is technically wrong and bad from what everyone learned at college or what have you in our kind of like early days.
Principles, right? In like brand principles and design principles.
From a design principle standpoint. But when I guess, learn the rules, break the rules kind of theory on all of it. Yeah. But it's really hard to, when you're designing spirits, because it needs to kind of be unique and it needs to have this discoverable element. Stranger and Stranger is a great example. I think my favorite right now, who I was just talking to him on Instagram, Chad Michael Studio, who I'm sure everyone's familiar with. The best. The new wine he did, it's like super fucked if you really dissect that.
But it gets away with it.
So perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
I fucking love that thing, and the structure is so different. We talk about that for a while.
It must have to do with like. It must have to do with the price point. You think of wines, you think of museum, you think of fine art. Almost gets to play a little bit in there, in this abstract way, right?
Absolutely,
it's almost expected.
Yeah, and I think it is because the price point on a lot of these spirits, you know, it can't be generic. They need to demand a higher price point, and how do you do that? You make it more discoverable, you make it more interesting,
right? Yeah.
So how do you teach this? I can barely explain it to you, right? Like, how do you teach this to even a seasoned designer? And so the best way I've done it over time was, and this like dawned on me years ago when we were going into Christmas break, and there was a designer who was like, I really, really want to be better at this. How do I be better? Like, they're so keen. And I'm like, you're good. We just got to keep doing it. And then I was like, you know what? Here's this. Why don't you take an old and a new? And so he took a Stranger and Stranger pack that was, I pulled them for this person. And it was a Stranger and Stranger pack that was like really, Craig Loughy, I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, the 23 year, I believe. It's yellow. It's got overlays. Yes. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It is fucked, but it is a contemporary version of like it being like really good spirits design. And then I pulled a really, really old, I forget what it was, but like really wild 1940s whiskey label. And they're both wild in their own right. And I said, drop it to 50% opacity, find the closest typefaces on everything, and literally copy this verbatim on 50% opacity and bring it back after break. Nice. And they did it, and they did a couple other ones that were super keen. They were great. And a super good designer at this point. But it was really like what you got out of copying this new and old. You saw the moves that were made. So like with the old one, there was no computer for another, I don't know, 60 years, whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
Easily.
No Creative Cloud for at least 60 plus years.
No Adobe fonts.
yeah, definitely not like and so like it was all set completely differently, right? Like it was hand set or it was hand drawn, and there is really weird moves that are made. And so you get, by laying that out, you start to see, I need to kern every single letter to just fit the base that says packaged in Ireland or Scotland or what have you, right? Like, and so by doing this, you learn all these moves, and then you see like, there's actually about 7 different typefaces happening. But if at first glance, they all just kind of work together and they flow together. Imagine telling a designer, hey, you got 7 typefaces. Go make me a spirits. Go make me a whiskey. Like, that would break my brain. But like, once you start to lay this out and copy it, you start to see like, I get this now, and I get why there are so many different ones, because you're going back to the hierarchy. There is a hierarchy still to all of this information. True. It's just this really convoluted, hyper layered. You have about 8 layers of hierarchy that you need to get through, but also make this beautiful piece. And then the same goes for the contemporary version. I like the contemporary version because like we know like all the Stranger and like super high end spirits designery kind of people like Chad, all really pull from these historical pieces. So they're kind of like the modern cut and how they modernized it and took it. So you also get to see the moves that a modern person also made. And that's really what started the practice of things, where I just like have people make a bunch of stuff so that they could, I think the action is like doing it, which is really great because you're just doing it and there's no purpose. You're not trying to impress your creative director. No. You're not trying to impress your client. You don't have to really show it to anyone.
It's a sandbox.
It's great.
Right.
And then at the same time, you really understand, not only are you building muscle memory, like going to the gym, doing your reps, you're making reps, but you're also learning why decisions are made. And then that translates greatly to all these other exercises that we do as a studio. And that I was even talking to my guys this morning of like, any ones that you guys are doing without me, even knowing, and there was quite a few, which is really cool to hear.
You've left your mark, man.
It's great. I think it's awesome. And I think everyone should do it.
They've made it a practice. They've kind of built it into the system already. And I was thinking about this the other day after we chatted, and I was like, I do this in my class with my students where we do these 30-minute challenges, and I think they're great for even just individuals on their own, individuals that are connected via Slack or whatever, and like chat with other designer friends or whatever. Do this in the morning. Try them out, right? We did this one where it was like, if there's anything going, like I'll see something on the die line, it'll be like ramen is the new thing in packaging, whatever. And I'll go download a fun little PSD mockup, and I'll be like, guys, you have 30 minutes. Go on ChatGPT, make a quick little brief of some, futuristic, laser cat, ramen company, and have fun. Have fun with it. Like,
Totally.
you nailed it by saying it's not for anybody but yourself. And
Totally.
you know what the best thing I have realized? It's not just the warm up, bro. It's this little friendly competition amongst the designers.
100%. And so on that, I think that's really strong because I relate everything to sports. If you haven't noticed yet, but like
not yet.
On that, the design team, we've all worked at places. Sometimes the design team really competes with each other, and it's a not so great of a team. What I've instituted in a lot of design teams, either DD or creative director, and definitely here, is like, this is a team, like we are a baseball team, and like your director is the manager of the team, and everyone better be playing together. And so like we encourage a lot. No one's allowed to just sit on a project and just do it all themselves. Like everyone needs to pass the file back and forth. And we encourage this very fluid motion of like, try this, take stealing, fucking someone else's up. If you build that into your team and you build a team like that, it's so much better. But there is still like that competition because you're trying to be like, oh, I love that. I want to take that. I want to make that better. And that's what you get with these morning warm-ups too, because we're all sitting essentially in a line or like a lot closer to it. Like I'll pull my computer up and be in between people. So we're like close together when we're doing it. Good. And you're basically just like looking at other screens being like, I want to make that thing. Semi, can I have that? We were doing the horse business cards the other day, and I was like, give me that horse, that's fucking sick. And the one designer like actually made it a little bit better before he handed it to me, and then I was like, cool, I have like this final nice illustration that I don't even have to do anything with. But that's the beauty of like actually working in a team versus like me sitting there, I'm gonna have to design the horse and illustrate it, and no, like use each other. So I love that idea of like collaboration's not it, it's just like teamwork. But I love the Slack idea too, because that feels really fun. I feel like if
my
you
buddies
can
and I
get
do that all the time.
That's awesome. That's
like,
really cool.
Even if it's like we're struggling at a moment of I can't finesse this any longer. I've been on it for 3 hours. A buddy will throw it in Slack, and within 5 minutes, he's probably got 5 revisions from 5 different artists that all know the ethos of his brand or what he's doing or whatever. And we just have a blast on that, man. That's
awesome.
Right. And so there's a way, it doesn't have to be a big agency. It doesn't have to be you in a room of 6 other people or whatever. You can find those ways to do it. And students can do it amongst themselves with other students in their class,
Yeah.
There's no excuse, really. There's no excuse. One of my favorites, we did this thing where I think it was when somebody rebranded, and I just said, Snapchat hasn't rebranded in quite a while. And we were just like, rebrand Snapchat in 30 minutes. And I'm telling you, I get my students will reach out to me years later going, man, if it wasn't for those 30-minute challenges, they're like, I stood out amongst everybody on my team today because we had to do this.
Destroy at work.
The art director came in and said, I need 3 quick comps. We have a client come in or whatever it might be. And they're like, that real world scenario exists. And I push so hard that for school and education to change the pace. So pace is a whole other thing. I love this idea because, I time it because we only have a short amount of time together in a night session. But what you're doing with this idea of the first thing in the morning, giving yourself that. And I've heard more and more people, now that I'm thinking about it, that we've chatted with over the last few years, say they do a little morning exercise drill with their coffee. It's a great idea.
Yeah. So some other examples, because I asked the team, just my direct team, which is crazy because I thought I invented this for us, but I didn't, which is really fun to see. Where my Kevin Davis, my design director, who's awesome. We've worked together at tons of agencies before too, but he said years ago he'd go into he was working at Madwell at the time in Brooklyn. He'd go in 30 minutes early at like 8:30 to 9 and just for 3 months straight just chip away at After Effects tutorials, just really rudimentary how to do After Effects tutorials, and like slowly be like, I want to make this movement, and He'd just go do the tutorial or copy something. And he said he did that for like almost 3 months and basically taught himself the whole program. I will send you the link. You should go look at his animation, which he doesn't like to talk about much.
Oh, please
It's like
send
his,
it.
his
Yeah.
side little passion.
I'll link it.
He fucking rips. It's crazy. And this was all learned over just like 30 minutes in the morning before at his job, before anyone came in the office, just like trying stuff out.
A whole new deliverable now on his resume.
100%.
What he can provide to you guys as a team. Isn't that great? What else?
Yeah, and sorry, just on motion, which I think every young person needs to hear this. You need to be good at motion. Full stop. You don't have to be amazing. I'm not,
Same here. I get you.
10 thumbs when I'm working in After Effects. I can make it work. But you need to think in motion. And that is like the crucial, if you're not graduating with like some bit of motion and some knowledge of it, knowing how to design for it, considering that in every mark that you're making making a logo or a Viz ID, you need to know how it's going to come to life. I think is so crucial. And I've been preaching this. So this is my little side.
Oh, even if you
please go learn it.
I've told a few students they didn't get any experience in that at all, and they're graduating. I'll be like, fake it. Find the quickest
100%.
way to add something that moves on your website at the very beginning. I'm telling you, like they're being asked it all the time in every single job. Right? So yeah, good point. Good point.
And again, you don't need to be good at it. You need to know how to direct it. You need to know how to think.
Just put it under your umbrella.
Motion.
Put it under your umbrella, right?
And that's an easy one. That's your first practice. If you know everyone listening, that's the first thing you do for a couple of mornings.
If you need something good, go with motion, right?
Another designer of ours, Will Simmons, who's great. Look him up too. He told me right before we got on this call that he was doing Coursera. I never heard of it.
That's an online. Yes, that's an online learning thing, I believe, right?
Yeah, and I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm doing. I just signed up for the history of graphic design from CalArts, and it was like $50 a class. Incredible, like history of graphic design. Like I'm like, fuck, I want to learn that. I want to know that. I definitely took that class in college, and it was probably not what it is today. It was very, very much not graphic design. It was more like commercial art. So I feel like that could be really cool.
What a great idea! I love that one.
So like force yourself. If you don't have the look, when I go to the gym, I get lazy too, and I don't want to. I'm like, do I have to do dips today? Do I have to do that? You cut corners. You're going to do that naturally with this too. But that could be a good example if you're like not strict enough to where it's like, cool, once a week, it's going to be an hour of my day, and I'm going to have to do something.
I think you'd start looking forward to that in a heartbeat. Because if it's not part of your normal routine, wow, you got some sounds coming over there.
Dude, it's cops, it's everything. It's fucking
everything.
wild.
Unreal. Unreal.
And then there's like a cop in the middle of the street directing traffic.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Any other fun little drills that you got from the team?
Yeah, let's see. I got a lot.
Oh, good. Let's spend some time on this, man.
We do this thing, and we're gonna dip into like process. So like, check me when I get there. But I think it's helpful, and I want people to take away like good process things that they could implement. And I know you said you like when people do that too. So some of this is more process, but like we do this thing called scamping, and it's essentially like it's thumbnailing. Thumbnailing I always hated in college because you know it didn't mean anything. I wanted to get to the finish thing. I always wanted to be like finish.
Oh, same.
And I've removed myself from that. And I forced myself. So instead, like thumbnailing we naturally just do. I mean, I still do. Probably more than ever from a creative director standpoint. It's a lot easier, and then I can literal shitty little thumbnails of like
just enough. Right?
Yeah, I mean that's how we do our case studies first. Like we spend a lot of time just thumbnailing case studies out. But then like what's the next level of that, which I really love, and especially when you struggle with spirits designing, because again it's like or even just like pack design. Is like taking screen grabs of a bunch of old things and putting them on top of each other. The words don't need to match. I wish I had an example. Maybe I'll send you an example that you can show people. But it's like,
I will.
We just recently coming out soon, which I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about. Coming out very soon is Old Crow 86. So we redid a new innovation SKU for Old Crow. So we had all of this old work and all of these old archives and pieces that we took. So taking and dissecting that and looking at how they did things in the past and what all these old typefaces and marks and whatever, and literally just taking them. So like maybe it said, packaged in Kentucky, but we wanted to use that as the logo type. So you just take like KY, KEN, whatever, a few letters that made crow, and you just chuck them in there. And you literally just like screen grab bits and pieces, and you start to see like, oh, crow's going to be really big up top. We're going to have 86 a little bit smaller. We're going to have, but it's going to be in this typeface. So you basically like collage design is what we do for scamps. And this works for anything and everything. And we've built that into our workflow where it's like, first crit shouldn't be design stuff. Like it should be first crit. We're going to get to first crit a lot faster than we normally would. And I just want collages of where you think this is going.
Yeah.
And it can't be shit from Pinterest. It needs to be historical stuff. And some people love this. Like I love this because I hate pencil sketching. Vin, he's using all of our team. He's really shouting them out today.
Go for it, dude. I'll link him too.
He really loves, he's an iPad sketcher hardcore, but ended up really liking that because he would go too much to that final thing quite often. So he's joined more recently, and he seems to be really like jamming with that, and me and him go back and forth with that all the time, which is just easier because they're just like cool thing. What if it looked this way? I mean, it wastes zero time. We just get to where we're headed. And then Will, who I was talking about, is very much a tight pencil sketcher. And so he does it a little bit, but he adds in a ton of like the pencil sketching. So there's all these different, you don't have to do it in any one way. The idea is just removing the finalization from everything and practicing. And then scamping, we've implemented that into, if we don't have an idea or we know that a big project's coming up and we're excited about it, which this happened the other day, we know that something's coming in. It's like this collaboration between two brands and under the same portfolio. And we're like, sick. Everyone just go scamp on this. Like, what would you do? Yeah. We don't have the full brief. We just knew generally it's going to be brand A and B, and it's going to be a premium offering, and it's a spirit.
That's enough to go off.
There's a box to it, right? Yeah. Like, what do we do? Do we put a big ribbon around it? Do we put it in a wood box? Do we change the box altogether? That's where you start scamping, because you just start pulling these cool different things, and there's almost no rules to it. So now we just have this bank. We had this bank of like, oh, this could be cool, this could be cool, this could be cool ideas that literally 15 minutes the entire team with 7 designers go do. And all of them, you have this bank now. And now me, or the design director, walking into the brief where it's like the proper brief. They put it all down on paper. It's not just the teaser of like, you guys are going to go do this. We're just ripping like, wouldn't this be cool? Wouldn't this be cool? Wouldn't this be cool? And that all just came from scamping. So these scamps and this warm-up led to an actually super productive brief, which got us further down the line on the project. The client's excited. They know we're excited. I mean, show your excitement as a whole different territory of like, if the client knows you're stoked and you're actually stoked, it's going to be good. It's going to be hot when you finish that project.
Oh man, that scamping idea is a great one. If you don't have enough time to just be free designing and it has to go towards a specific project that you're working on, that is the equivalent, right? Because you're doing the free zone work. It's not final, but the benefit is it's leading right into what you might have to be doing later in that day, or
100%,
or something you're delivering to the client. I love that too, because let's say that brings out a nuance of something you discovered in there and you relate that to the client. They're going to be like, they're excited about this. They get the industry I'm in. This is, they know more than I do.
Yeah.
Whew, that is.
Yeah. And when you know more about the history of the brand than they do, game over.
Or the industry or the segment, whatever it might be. Right.
Yeah. I know you guys.
I love that.
The Fred talk, I know you guys were talking, Fred's big thing is like understand the startup industry of whatever category you're going into. And I couldn't agree more. Oh. I think we do it on a like super niche level because we do so many spirits. So it's like, we do a lot of strategy and innovation as well. So like we're very much into liquid innovation and things like that. But like getting down to liquid innovation when you're just a spirits designer, people are like, hold on a minute. What are you talking about? When you can like really talk your way about
put it all
around
together.
stave finishing and why that matters and how you can like improve this product. They're like, oh, okay. We're not just talking to an artist here. We're talking to someone who gives a shit about like what this final product is inside and out.
Isn't that the best feeling of knowing that you just got them with some bit of information
100%.
That shows your advantage? And once and then I think you stand up for yourself more as an agency or an individual, design owner. When that happens again, you're like, oh, that's what you get from working with us or with me,
Totally.
I had a client who's venturing off into a whole other segment, and he's like, I don't know if you know anything about it, whatever. And it just happened to be something I know everything about every player.
Sick.
And he left the call with going like, I am so glad you are already plugged in on this. And right there eliminates every other worry. You're in. It's so great.
All the worry, and you can start the projects. I mean, like our end goal, at least my end goal, and I think most designers is like, we want to make the thing and see it in the world. Like the
Totally.
making the thing and then getting it to the world is like the most exciting bit. Let's get there faster. I love strategy.
Yeah.
I love the initial, but like, how can we expedite that? Because we just want to do the do, and by doing that, you're like you eliminate like the like businessy, relationshipy like stuff. It's like, nope, we're on the same page. Let's go make some stuff.
And you know when a project's probably not, if it doesn't have all of those little touch points, that's the red flag that maybe this isn't the right thing.
Totally.
There's so many lessons with that, man. Good.
So,
go ahead. What else do we have?
We got more, and it's gonna probably get. I'm screwing your flow up because I saw the outline of this talk, but like
it's there for just for guidance. But keep going. Good. I love this.
I think the scamping is a nice segue into like we're talking about designers and design and like the doers of this, but I think what I in my career have not struggled with, but like had a problem with was like. No one ever taught me to be a good design director or creative director. And, well, that's not fair. I've had wonderful creative directors.
You had other ones above you. You're like, wait a minute, my network is listening.
Yeah. No, they were great. But like the management part of it, like, no, they didn't teach me. Let's be clear. They're wonderful. They didn't teach me. I learned from watching them. But that takes a long time. And so, like, I was like, how can we... and let different things happening where you get promoted and what have you, and then you have other people start to come in under you that need to be directing more than you. I think it's like design directors are like the big one, and where I kind of historically spent all the time both struggling myself and then struggling to teach people, where it's like they're the bottleneck of an agency. They have a design team underneath of them. They have to talk to me, the creative director or the executive creative director, and then me also their head of accounts and their head of strategy, and they need to appease everyone up top, and then all the boots on the ground, the full team there. And they're the bottleneck ultimately, right? And they need to both be designing sometimes to some degree, but also being like really conceptual thinkers and presenters and client facing. So it puts them in this really hard position of management. And I think, again, I have wonderful mentors and creative directors above me and what have you, but like we don't, as an industry, at all teach how to manage.
Oh, and it's gotten so bad.
It's getting horrible because we can talk
horror stories.
It's not good, and I think that sucks. You don't want to be a junior designer or even a senior designer on a team with with people who aren't great at managing. I was there. No one wanted to be that. We were like figuring it out as we go, right? And I think we got into a good place. But I think so with that, like, how can design directors practice and how can director level people practice? And I think design directors, strategy directors, and even account directors, I think fall really deep into this because I know we talk, individual studios and larger agencies and smaller agencies. I do really think like I like this idea of practice that goes into everyone who plays a role in this industry, not just the designer.
Yeah.
So how do they practice? I think building it on a design director, like you need to practice you're making the presentation. You need to practice that presentation before it goes to the client. And because, you're going to spend 2 to 3 weeks doing your round one, going through all the shit, battling it out with the team and everyone there and getting it absolutely perfect. And I was there, you go and you had so many ideas and this direction we pulled from this and this and this, and this direction we did this. And then you go and you just rip through and you completely forget. You're nervous. I was nervous. I've been nervous before, right? You're nervous or you're trying to get through you're trying to give them every single idea. And the client's only listening to you half the time anyway. Mm-hmm. They're looking at a picture, they're digesting it, they're making their own assumptions on what you're showing them. So having this balance, how do you become good at presenting? So being good as a director is also being a really good presenter as well, a client-facing person. Yeah. So how do you do that? And I've instituted some rules over the years, and definitely what we do 100% of the time, we do not falter at Tavern, is the deck needs to be completely done. No edits. You're not allowed to touch it at least 24 hours in advance, which that I'm sure people listening are glowing and thinking, man, how amazing would that be? Because I know as a senior designer, one day I would have been like, oh, that would have been great that I didn't have to be, 5 minutes before the presentation shuffling slides around. But it's really crucial because not only is the entire team and agency definitive on we know exactly what we're presenting and we're all confident that this is what we're presenting. No one's going to change the idea. We're all in alignment. So it sets up alignment, which alignment is confidence. So you can be, so perfect. That design director can be confident going into that presentation. And then it gives you time to practice, back to practice, literally. So, more junior design directors, I always have them they have to talk to 4 people before the final one, which is a lot of time, right? If you're talking about a 45-minute presentation, that is a fuck ton of time out of your week. So, and you have to do it. So you can rip through it. You can do it in like 20 minutes, rip through fast. But the motion of going through that. But what they do is like the more junior people, I want them to talk to more junior people. So you're not getting peppered by me being like, change this slide, change this. Yeah. You're showing it to a junior who's learning how to also, they're kind of learning from you. Like I said, I learned from up. Yeah. Right? I learned from all the creative directors I had. Yeah. I just had to osmosis it into me. So forcing that to happen. So it's kind of practice for 2 people. So they're presenting. It doesn't have to be finished. It could be 5 days before the press. It's like, I think we're going to go here with this direction, what have you. But they go through all the steps. And then they start to see like, I need some front slides from accounts, or I need strategy to weigh in on this. Or what do you think, junior designer? Like, is this making sense to you? Which it always does, and they're smart. Just because they're junior doesn't mean they're smart, and they have a lot to add to the value of the project. So they're then adding value to the project. They're learning and hearing people present. And you as the design director are just practicing telling it to a person, which is valuable in and of itself. It's just like talking it out multiple times. So doing that, I think, is the best practice you can have as a director. And this goes for anyone, right? Like this goes for the junior designer, like going into class. Like, if I was a student, if I was a teacher, I would say, go do your project, make sure it's done 24 hours before your next class, and at lunch or beforehand, present it to your friends, non-design friends, design friends, family, your mom, whatever, whoever. Just present it, because by talking it out, you're just going to get better at design. I keep referencing Fred just because it's the connection between us. But he talks about like just getting the shit kicked out of them in writing and writing. It's the same thing with presenting. Like, eat shit a little bit as you're presenting it. Fumble through it. I still present to my strategy lead and account lead. Shout out Jenna Portella, Amanda, who's our creative ops, Amanda Sihojos, and Lisa Frank, head of strategy director. But I still present to them like completely fucking things up, fumbling through it, knowing that it needs to go to, and it's great, right? Yeah, like and so like show yourself a little bit and practice on others. Like I'm pretty confident these days, as I'm sure you are, that you could go into any meeting and blow through it, but like it's not going to be 100%. Again, like if you don't practice, it's not going to be amazing. So practicing just gets you to that like your best point.
I love that idea that if you luck out, if you're creative and you get to work with accounts, you get to work with you name it, the other people that didn't touch the art. And I love that creative gets to be in this zone more and more over these last maybe 2 decades. I've witnessed it. It's incredible. And it's so great because it's like the more confident you are doing this stuff, and you got it through, maybe you did it in the hotel room, maybe you did it whatever before a pitch, or maybe you just did it at home before you Zoomed with somebody, right? A new client or whatever it might be. That confidence level, I tell you, you're so right in saying in the next few weeks, the next few months, you'll look forward to the presentations rather than like go, oh, I'm so nervous. Like,
100%. You're gonna be stoked.
It is the best. One thing I learned through, we had a guy he was an incredible, his name was Richard Green. He was an incredible public speaking coach, and he worked with huge people, and we hired him at our agency, and we did this thing where we had to, on the spot, do a presentation of something we are currently working on for 5-10 minutes. And this guy filmed us, and we didn't even know. And then we all got to watch our video. And then we went through the whole 8-hour like workshop. Then we got to redo it at the end, and we saw our before and after. So now what I do with my students is when they present, they know it has nothing to do with their grade. It is all about exploration and comfort and confidence, right? And they have the option where I will film them and I will only share it. Beauty of airdrop. I could just airdrop it to them, and they're the only ones that have it, right?
That's
no
awesome.
one else has it. And because I think a lot of times they go like, oh my God, where's that video going to go? And I'm like, nope, just sharing it with you. And you can watch it and see what works, what doesn't work. You can show it to a friend or family member and say like, was I to the point? Was there too much fat in there? What can I do? And isn't that
that's awesome.
Practicing that is great.
And it's free, right? Like you just put it on your phone. Like you could do that by yourself. You put it in front. You could literally put it right here on my computer and just film myself.
You don't have to share it with anybody. Yeah.
No, it's let's take it back to sports. It's reviewing the tape before the game, right?
Totally, dude. Totally.
It's great. It's you see where your mistakes are. I love that.
Yeah.
We Lisa Frank, our strategy director, she's a big Loom Loom user, and like
my Slack guys were just talking about that. Yeah.
It's great. I mean, we started using it with clients. You know, can't get a meeting on, but we want to get a whip over to them. So it's a whip, and candidly, most of the designers, myself included, feel super awkward when we do it. But you just got to get over it. But it does. I have seen after using it.
Oh, I love it.
Literally this week, I've seen a direct improvement of someone who has been using it on our team that then presented to a client, and the enthusiasm level just has drastically shifted for the better.
I think it's a magic in between spot, because it takes away the fear it might be if someone hasn't presented yet live in front of somebody, right? Because it's just them and they're in the comfort of their own office or whatever. And I feel like people are more themselves that way.
Exactly.
Because I learned the hard way. I learned my presentation skills were built on copying people that I was impressed with, not just being myself and using the pauses, using the vocabulary that I use, not somebody else.
Totally. Yeah.
That's great.
I love that. It's like what you're saying. It's like the human element. A good friend of mine who I've worked with and is like my wing person on when I do speaking stuff, which is very rare. But when I do it, it's nerve wracking, right? To go stand on stage, and her favorite thing to Nirani Scotch, wonderful, or agency Oracle. She's like, just trip every time you go out on stage. You humanize yourself, which I just love. And it doesn't have to be a trip. It just has to be something human.
Just a misstep.
Humanize yourself.
A misstep.
Yeah, completely.
And purposeful.
Purposeful. Yeah. That goes such a long way versus like trying to be funny out the gate, or trying to be very, very smart or sincere out the gate, right? Like it's this humanizing element, which I just love. And I think you could take that into literally everything. That's great. You know, knock over something in a meeting, like just anything, just be normal, be not normal by be normal by being not normal, right?
Yeah.
Like just humanize yourself.
I love
and I think that just turns you, it's just more engaging, because at the end of the day, all we're doing is telling stories. We're telling stories to sell you something. Mm-hmm. That is the goal at the end of the day. The story to the journey of 45 minutes to an hour deck presentation to sell you on an idea. It should be fucking fun. It should be engaging. You can do that through storytelling, but you could do that just by being yourself at the end of the day as well. And that's what people like. It's a relationship thing. So, and they like you as the person because you're already in this relationship.
Yeah. And also practice makes perfect on everything you do. But there's something about that fear of all those fears you might have of doing the pitch to somebody, or it's now in your hands and you've never done it before. The only way you'll get over that is the practice part. Honestly, even if you're doing it on your own with your team or whatever it might be. So great points there as well. I'm glad we got a chance to go through that, because that was kind of like our second tier of like, what are you doing communicationally, management as well. We even touched on that, like learning from the best. And I even, not only did I learn from the best when it came to my managers or the people that were I reported into over the years, but then you also learn from the ones that were doing it terribly. And you're like, that gave me the incentive to say, I'm going to be the best, CD VP, because I've seen how the missed opportunities in someone that didn't know and didn't have maybe they didn't get the lessons to learn,
100%. Yeah.
That's great. How do you keep this stuff in motion? Like, okay, so let's say our listeners and everybody have found ways to do this. How do you keep it going? What are the routines and the non-negotiables that you like? I like you said in the mornings too. It's like, I know my alarm clock, when it goes off, that's my first non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
If I fail on that, my whole day's crumbled. Right?
Totally.
What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I basically said most of them, so I kind of ruined it a little bit. But I think it's very much design team specifically. We do our warm ups, even if it's 15 minutes, you're doing something different, and I think you have to build that into the culture of the studio, and we've done a good job at doing that because everyone's excited to do it. Because that doesn't happen at 9:30 in the morning, 9:30 in the morning every day. Absolutely not. But like, before lunch, someone just shoots over this thing that they like needed a break on. And I think, building it, you have to build it in. So I force it in the mornings to try, but then once it gets in, it could be fluid. I was talking to another one of the team members about this last night in preparation, where it's like, some people will even do that because you're on one project or two types of projects, two spirits packs, the whiskey and a tequila that you're working on, kind of side by side, you're splitting your day. You get, even when you're doing that and you can kind of switch between projects, you still get stuck and you need to do something wild. So like using that as your like refresher or like, to clear the slate really starts to help. So you spend 15 minutes even in the middle of a project just making an animation or doing an illustration or fussing with some new type that has nothing to do with the project you're working on.
Yeah.
Really kind of gives you like, again, getting the shit out on the page, like getting it out and getting it ready. So once you kind of master it, I think in the day-to-day, build it. If you're a studio, build it into your culture. Even if you're just a design director or a creative director, even if you're a design director with a shitty creative director, that happens. It sucks. You can still build.
Be that person, right?
Yeah, be the one who takes care of your team. I'm like full proponent of that. Like really take care of your folks, and start to build this stuff in. And I think I'm just thinking like, oh, but I'm never going to be allowed to do that from 9 to 9:30. Then everyone get there early, or everyone before you guys go to the bar at 6. Spend the
You're going to say 4.
I was going to say 4. It depends on how bad the creative director is.
Whatever day,
bar, 2,
or how the day's been, right?
Yeah. After the presentation at 12. I don't know. No, before you go to the bar, everyone sit around, jam on something. It'll be fun. You can definitely find areas to build in. I'm not saying overwork. This isn't about overworking it. It should be fun. It should be the fun thing. So
I love that. That's a great point. One thing I want to bring up is the benefits of it will obviously help you keep it in line too. Once you do it and you see the difference, I think it becomes, like you said, it's a natural, organic part of the culture now. And I think that's a lacking thing right now between hybrid and remote. The cultures are not being kind of cultivated in office spaces or within companies or within groups. So there's a way to now, if you are struggling to create a culture and whatever, be the person that drops this into the mix. I think every person's looking for how do I get the promotion? How do I get the job? Even if you're interviewing for a position right now, bring this shit up that you do this on a daily basis, right? Like how else can you stand out in this sea of competition when it comes to other designers? Here is one of your game changers.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about this on other podcasts, and not to derail us a little bit, but
no worries.
I will say, how do you differentiate yourself? It is be as keen as humanly possible. The best designers, this might embarrass him a little bit, but Will Simmons is one of our newest designers. He DM'd me and everyone on the team on LinkedIn very politely, very wonderfully, said, hey, I really love the work you're doing. Would love 15 minutes. I want to move to New York. I want to chat. And was like super nice, not fucking annoying whatsoever. And like hit up everyone on our team. And then like was, liking all the posts on Instagram. So much so that it's like, well, we got to talk to this guy now.
Wow.
He's an amazing designer. We got really lucky. But it doesn't even matter if he was good or bad. He is so excited and so keen and so into this that just pushing to like, in a polite way, don't annoy people. but like that you're like, yeah, I got to talk to you. And it's really shown over the years of hiring at many different agencies. It's the people who are just stoked. It doesn't matter your skill level. It's if you're stoked and if you're willing to do these little things, to push it ever so slightly, to just be better, you're going to go, so you're going to get the attention of someone, and you're going to get the attention of the right people who want to hire you. You might not get the attention of who you want, but it'll be the attention of people. Yeah.
That is the best story. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I needed a good real life example of that, because I preach that so much, and I've talked to other agencies and they say the exact same thing. Be stoked about this. Show me you care. And what was the guy's name?
Will Simmons.
Dude, kudos to him, man, because like,
he's great. There's a bunch of people on our team, but he's the latest one, and he's
that
awesome.
Is the right way in. Yeah. And the impression he made to you, and you're right, even if the design, maybe you're like, oh, Bob
should
over
be clear,
here.
Is not the case for Will. This kid fucking rips.
You mentioned that. I wanted to bring it up, that say, like, God forbid, like, maybe it's not the right fit. It might be exceptional work, but just not the right fit for your agency. You're going to be an advocate for this person now. You might 100%. Call out and be like, but I know the perfect place for it. You know, I love to connect you with this person.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at the way
definitely that. I mean, right. If it's the right if it's someone so keen, like and we have the opening, we're going to, why not? Yeah. Join the team. We'll train you up. Better than a stranger. It doesn't matter. Exactly. It's someone who knows the brand, the agency brand, who really is in line with what you guys, like what the agency necessarily does. And it's like, they're going to be stoked. There's this, shouting out everyone.
Do it.
Tracy from Fiber, Fibre. It's a coaching. It's like career coaching, and they come into
possible guest, maybe.
Definitely possible guest. She's awesome. You should totally bring her on. Okay. She was, I believe, she was like Landor or somewhere, like accounts like back in the day, and then has been running this with a partner for like 23 years or something. They're awesome. They would come in and train, similar to the guy you were talking about that would record you. They would come in and train Design Bridge, and we do like style, management styles, and the whole. It would be days of workshopping, and she's my personal coach, who I talk to all the time. My design therapist, I call her, but she's my coach, and she had this. We were just talking yesterday. Can I pull it up fast enough?
Go ahead.
Hopefully you can cut out the.
No, we're authentic and real here, man. Everyone's waiting.
Her quiz. She has some really good quiz, but it was on this. It's recruit for attitude, train for skill, and I like. If you are so keen, we can train you to be a good designer. You're already a good designer.
That's it. Get through the door. Be everything we need at that point. In fact, they want to. We almost want to like curve you into what the aesthetic 100%. and the ethos is going to be at that particular company.
Absolutely.
That's killer, dude.
Sorry, we got so sidetracked. But we were talking about how to put practice. I think
you talked about it. Practicing
the design, and then for everyone else, the director level and up. I think I would implement 24 hours before a presentation needs to be done in the books. Don't change it. Yeah. If you do that, then you have time to practice the presentation or the pitch or the negotiation. We talked about negotiation a little bit, like for individuals who are negotiating, like. Go negotiate with, a family member, and be like, "Don't sell me. Try not to sell me this, or try to get me down to $5,000 on this project, like whatever it is. Get me down to $500. Like, how can I convince you?" And then you'll learn kind of just the back and forth. One thing on that, and I'm trying to give it to like the most junior people all the way up to the most senior people possible in any organization. I think. You might think you're hot shit right now, right? If you're the hot shot, what I would do is take design director, creative director, ECD, even take that to your most senior account person or strategist, and say, just rip me apart as I present this and interrupt me and they will pepper you with fucking questions and be like, well, why'd you make this decision? And you're like, but I'm gonna tell you in a few pages. And you're like, nope, tell me now. And then you cut, and with that, if you want to really level that up, you write down all of those questions and you have answers to them, which is what Kevin and I do. Like when we know we're going to battle.
Yeah.
Me and my design director we'll grab the question, we'll get peppered, and we'll keep those questions and literally answer them on a note sheet so that you have a cheat sheet of it or a crib sheet of it. And so when someone's like, well, why'd you make it purple? And you're on slide 5 of 100.
Like, I got this.
I don't answer that till page 50. And you're like, I'm going to be able to have a tight answer and ready to go. And all of these little deck and presentation things, I was super insecure about those over the years because I just didn't think I was good enough, or I was told by creative directors or account people that I wasn't really the best at it. So I really tried to find all these little hacks how to make myself better. And it's it's the practice on that. It's the getting peppered with questions and then having answers for everything. And then the other one is I don't think people do this because I think everyone wants to be like Don Draper, where it's like nostalgia, the carousel, and just move on, right? Like everyone wants to have that mic drop moment in their deck with no copy.
It's not called
and
a wheel,
nothing.
Mike. It's called carousel.
That's what I'm searching for.
I watched that. I'm the biggest culprit of this one, man. I love that guy. Shit.
Everyone wants that. Don't do it.
No,
use the deck to your advantage. Annotate everything. If you know they're going to have a question, put it in copy on a page. You can flick through that page quickly. And so another thing that I learned through many different agencies is with that, if I know I'm going to get some stupid questions of why'd you make it purple on page 1 when I need to answer it later and I don't want to ruin my flow, build that into my deck. It could be a little annotated thing in black in 12-point font over to the right. And all of your notes, put your notes on the presentation. When you send it to the client, you can remove them.
Yes.
That one broke my brain when I was I had a 200-page deck at JKR for a pitch. And I was we had minimal amount of days to prepare this.
Yeah.
I was not confident in what I was going into. I knew I was going to forget stuff. I had note cards and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I put the note cards and I literally wrote them on every single page. And it was to the right. And I was kind of reading off of them.
But they're cues for you.
We won.
They're cues for
great.
you.
Yeah, it definitely, no one cares.
Let it help you.
Don't be Don Draper, I think is the takeaway of this one.
I was watching too, and I was noticing their boards, which are now our screens, right? They had the boards with the beautiful cover on them on the easels, and it would be there was no explanation, there was no whatever. It was so theater, and then I realized, particularly, I learned this through teaching, is my slides I show in my lecture are literally my cheat code. They are my little cheat cards because I put the things on there that are my little little flags to say, talk about this in this particular slide. And you're right. Give yourself every advantage in this situation, right?
Yeah. And if you really think about, put yourself in the client's position, do you want someone to tell you, no, trust me.
Yeah.
You hired me. You're paying me all this money. Trust me, this is the right answer. That doesn't fly anymore.
No.
It's oh, wait, here's all of the reasons why I made my decisions. And they're like, fuck. Well, they almost don't read them half the time. They're like, of course this person knows what they're doing. They took the time to actually, it's show the work. That's kind of the shorthand just dawned on me that we use in the studio. It's show the work. If you're doing a math problem, long form algebra problem, you weren't in algebra 1. You weren't allowed to just give the answer, right?
Of course.
Plug it into your Texas Instrument and just give the answer.
I always use math as the same thing. You wouldn't just show the answer.
You have to show all the way down on how you got it, and you couldn't fake your way through it. I think it's the same thing. Show your work, and in a positive way, and the client's just going to eat it up. That's your relationship is locked in for the next 5 years with that. I promise.
That's great, dude. Mike, you've given this has been fantastic, bro. I could talk to you for freaking hours. We're going to do a part 2.
This is fun. Yeah, let's definitely. Let's do it. I
all
love
these little nuggets, all these little things. I'm going to do my best. We're going to follow up, and I got a bunch of notes to send you so I can get some of that stuff to put in the notes, and I'll even drop in some visuals. Great shout outs to all of your team. I love those stories, bro. Thank you so much for sharing those. Totally. Where can everyone find you? Throw it out there.
TAVERN.agency.
Everything's there, probably, right?
If you want to email us, which I highly encourage anyone to do, please We'll answer any questions. I'll gladly respond. Like, I'm here as a resource. I want to be a resource, which is why I love this podcast and I love doing this. And we should do a part 2. Is like happy to be a resource for anyone, whether getting jobs, not necessarily at Tavern, but just in general. I want everyone to be better.
There's enough work for freaking everybody.
Be better team members is the crux of it. So yeah, anything. I mean, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, but definitely cheers@tavern.agency. And then our Instagram is tavern.agency, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that bit of hesitation. Like, I haven't looked this up in a while.
Yes, tavern.agency.
That's great, dude. Well, Mike, thanks again. I really appreciate it, man. This was awesome talking with you, man. I think we got so much good knowledge for everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Ideas, endless thoughts, graphic minds